Hey guys, welcome to the stream. Just going to go through something cool that I discovered recently, and that is how to do sort of like a squiggly type animation. I found a cool technique that I noticed in a few music videos for children's music videos, and with animation, sometimes you're presented with flat, static graphics and Illustrator files and whatnot, and you kind of want to animate some of the elements and make it look kind of cool. So what we're going to do is actually look at how to make the static images, and I'll start from what the end result's going to look like. How do we add it to the project? And there's a lot of other stuff I tend to incorporate with these types of videos as well. So it's not just one thing. It's double checking if you can actually hear me. Sorry about that, guys, but it's a live stream. So I'm double checking to see that you can actually hear the audio. We're having a bit of... Looks like we can. All right, we can definitely hear me. All right, great. Did that. So no need for the headsets anymore. All right. So let's get on to it. The first thing we're going to do is show you the actual result. I think I can do the tilde and see the full screen. Yeah, that's great. So you can sort of see what's happening. We've got this cool little, look to it. Now, this is actually done in, if you've ever seen Dr. Katz, and he's a very good example of it. So Dr. Katz had this fantastic... looking sort of squiggleness going on. Now, I didn't really realize why they did it, but the reason is simply because it's a quick and easy way of making something look animated without having to go to all the effort of actually doing a lot of animation. So real animation is when you use specific artwork and kind of, break it into different parts and segments using black outline, using the puppet tool and doing all that. Now, with that technique, obviously that's proper animation. But what I want to show you is the squiggle technique, where you just take simple little static images and turn them into what looks like animation. Okay, so that was obviously looping. So that's the end result. What we're going to do is take this and then add it to an existing composition. So this is the final comp over here, and I'll actually open this up. So just to give you an idea of what's going on. So this is a little crab that animates the way I've shown you. And what we're going to do now is we've pre-comped it or composed it in its own composition, and then that composition is placed in the final video. So we're going to get rid of all these now. We don't need these little pre-comps. So I'm going to show you how to make them all. But for now, we don't want to see those. But what we do want to see is the clip that they belong in, which I believe is connected here. It's this clip here, and you can see it's in the middle. So we're going to move this around. So right now, it's sitting in... She just numbered it like this. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Video number 8. So it should be this one here, which it is. So we're going to open that. We just double click this. Now I've covered this off before. This video here, this is the underwater limbo linked comp 21. This here is actually linked this here. That there is a copy of that there, right? So what I like to do is create a sequence and then duplicate each and every clip individually and then compose it and do all the animated craziness in After Effects. So let's go into the actual makeup of this clip, which is this is the link to what I just showed you. And then we start going through all these pre-comps that all link together. And I'll show you how that's all done, of course. The smooth screen, which is the green screen, we're going to go in and find where this clip actually becomes and I believe it's here. It's the green screen keyer, which is a weird name, but in any case, this is where our little guy is. Now, we can see the resolution sitting at half when I just did that. And then, of course, I can go to full. So rest assured, it looks fine. It's a ping, a .png image out of Illustrator. So I exported it out of Illustrator. Now, what we're going to do, it's this one here, the little crab guy. We're actually going to put the crab in the front of the scene. And we're going to grab this little guy and move him to there. So now, first things first, we're going to put him pretty much along the bottom here. So let's zoom into that, use the hand tool, so the H, and we're pretty much sitting along this bottom line. First things first, it's going to be a better idea if I move to a section, go back to the V tool or the, selection tool. Now, this is a good time to resize this. Now, the resizing actually does happen here as well. So if I just click on this little guy and resize him, and let's have a look. The way to do it, of course, is to use the transform tool. So we're going to use the scale and just get this guy to the size that we actually want. We've got a little bit of a problem with the green screen, unfortunately, as well. Got to love that. But we're looking at what size is this guy. There's no point making him too small. It's just not worth even having him if he's going to be too small. So the first things first, let's just focus on the animation of this. And then all it's going to be doing is a very simple animation. And we want it, the duration of this little clip is 17 seconds. So we're going to go to about the halfway point, and so we want this guy to reach the halfway mark, which is about there, okay? And essentially, halfway through the clip, we're here. What we're going to do now is create a keyframe. What we're also going to do is create a rotation on him as well. And so we're going to rotate him. That didn't work, so let's just redo that. Rotation, we're just going to use this, and we're going to go a little bit like that, right? Now, the positioning is going to be about there. Okay, let's zoom back in. I'm just using the scroll wheel when I'm zooming. Now, the next thing we want to do is go all the way back to the clip about where we think this little guy is going to appear is about, almost half a second. He's going to move from left to right. So we're going to use the hand tool. So he's going to move from left to right. So we're going to grab, hold the shift key to keep him going straight. Okay. And then what we do here is right click and cause a keyframe of easy out, which is counterintuitive. Easy out means go from this point out. So that's classic Adobe counterintuitive stuff going on there. But let's just press play, and hopefully this isn't too slow. And of course it is. It's always slow on a stream, isn't it? So during a stream, this has to go slow. So sorry about that. We're going to have to fix some of this keying as well, grease screen technique. But right now, we just want to see the animation of the crab, which doesn't seem to want to appear. Wow, it's too far away. So basically, by the time he comes in, it's 4 seconds in. So we've got a problem right there. We're actually going to go back to this keyframe by clicking that little arrow, and we're going to move him in. Holding the shift key, because we want him to start appearing at this point. Right there. So let's have a look. That was just an absolute schmozzle. So let's see. So once again, sorry about the slowness here, but we've got it on a third and it's moving as slow as anything at the moment. So let's just go through. Okay, so halfway through. Now to get it out there a little bit faster, what we can do is maybe bring it to about 8 seconds. Grab this position keyframe and just move it so that it gets a little bit further into the, moving along a little bit quicker. Now I believe I can snap that by pressing and holding the shift key. What we're going to do now is go easy in, which means as it moves in towards this point, it's going to start to ease. So that means it's going to start to slow itself down. We're not going to be able to see that properly, obviously, with this really slow rendering. Hence the reason why anyone that tells you you don't need a fast computer when you're doing this kind of work, they're absolutely kidding. You absolutely do need a fast computer. I'm going to look at getting an AMD 1700X 8 core, because at the end of the day, this is really needed when you do this kind of work. So basically, right now I'm using a quad core Intel CPU, and it's not doing the work. So now, what we're then going to do is focus on the out. So what we're going to do is we can see these guys. So it's probably worth having the little guy moved. By the time these children move to there, this guy should be out of the frame. So what we're going to do is use the hand tool, move across, okay, back to the selection tool. We're going to click, hold, and drag the shift key because we don't want him moving too much around, and he's off screen, and we'll easy in that again, which means as he's moving in towards this point, ease. That's what easy in means, as it moves in towards the keyframe. It doesn't matter what the thing's doing, it's more towards moving in towards the in frame. I want it to ease in, meaning slow down and decelerate. Mind you, it probably doesn't really matter because he's off the screen anyway. Having said that, what we're going to do there is just realize that, yep, he's gone and off he goes. Now, the other thing we're going to do is we can see that we've got, if we click on the rotation, we've only got one little, what's it called? Keyframe. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go back to here. As we see move, what we're going to do is actually change the rotation. So the rotation is going like that. So back and forth, okay? So we're moving the rotation like that. So what's happened is moving like that, okay? We're going to go back again. It's not exactly precise. I'm not doing any precise stuff here. Hand tool, right? And then we're going to grab the selection tool by pressing V, and we're going to go back to, maybe, negative. Okay. Once again, does it have to be precise? It's your choice. And then we get to about here, and the little guy is back to positive, and it could be 12 if you really wanted it to. So you can see what's happening. Basically, starts off as a 12-degree rotation. As it moves in, it starts to, as you can see, rotate the other way. And sorry about all the pixelation, but this is what happens when you don't have the fastest computer and you're doing animation. So we can see it now is going to start to rotate back and forth simply by adding keyframes for rotation. That's all I wanted. Now we can't see the squiggle stuff happening just yet, but we'll see it in a sec when I press to play, after it's rendered. So we just want to see it now rotate back the other way. So it's starting to slowly rotate back the other way, and we'll see once we get to the other keyframe, we'll just play back what's been played. Okay, finally. So we'll go back to here and we can see it, right? Now I could tighten that up a bit more. I could certainly, you know, the other thing we could do, now do you see the easy in? So the easy in, so we can see it as it gets to this keyframe, it eases in, right? And then it takes off again. Now what we can do here is experiment with this keyframe. We're going to easy ease on both sides, which means that it's going to be easy on the way in and on the way out. So let's just see that. So the rotations don't happen as quickly. It's a much of a muchness. It's not absolutely precise, but we can see that's working. The only other thing now to make sure that we're doing is actually hand tool will come across. Now clearly, I'm back to the V key to get the selection tool happening. So it's now not moving anymore. So we need it to spin about here. Just before it goes out, we're going to do another rotation. This time it's going to go negative again. Now let's just have a look and see that it's doing the right thing. So it's moving from here. Let's go to this keyframe and see what it's sitting at. It's sitting at -8. I think we need to get that down a little bit more negative because it's not as obvious. So it's sitting at -16. So basically we've got it going 1. Let's just play that again just to make sure. 1. And then it should be going to positive again. Okay. So I'm just having a look now. It's looking pretty good. And then we'll probably do another little rotation on its way out if we need it. But just to show you what it looks like now. 1, 2, and then okay, if you really wanted to, at about here, you can put another rotation at negative and make it -12. So gets to here and then starts rotating back the other way. So we can just see what that looks like. Okay, so it's going back the other way. That's fine. We're going to save that. Now, another cool thing that you can do, because it's now pre-composed, this little guy's pre-composed, the other thing you can do is actually duplicate this little guy. Okay, so if you think you're going to use 3 versions of it, a good idea is to actually copy it once, twice, 3 times, or however many times you think you're going to use it. And then decide, well, what's the first one going to do? It's going to move along the bottom like it just did. What's the second one going to do? What's the third one going to do, right? So the second one, now in this case, I can just grab the little crab anyway, because it's a composition. Just grab it, drop it into here, and it's sitting back in the middle like, and let's have a look. So the first one is moving along the bottom. Okay, we get to about 8 seconds and it's got to here. But what do we want this second one to do? And the second one can pop up. It can pop up and then pop back down again, right? So the second one is down here. Okay. We can rotate it. So it starts off on a rotation. It's going to be that way. Okay, almost a 45-degree angle. And what it's going to do is it's going to be, let's have a look. We get to the 8th second. The middle one is about there. Now the second one is the one we have selected, as you can see in the timeline. So we're going to move it up. Okay. Also, we're not wanting the same size, so we're going to try a scale thing here. We're going to make it a bit bigger. And what we're going to do is make it look like it's swimming forward, right? So what we want to do is have it so that it's sitting at about, let's find its end position. We'll move forward. This thing's there. So then we want this to be forward, okay, and large. Okay, let's have a look. So it's sitting at about like that, right? And what we're going to make it look like it's doing is we're going to make it look like it's arcing forward, okay? So to do that, we're going to add our first position keyframe, and we're also going to have our first scale keyframe. So what we want to do now is move it off screen like that, okay? Now what we're going to do is go back. Actually, I did that wrong. Let's just Control Z that. I was meant to have moved to the time that I want that to be back. Just about there. And now we move it off screen. Okay. Now when we move forward, we can see it moving in. Okay. As a second character. And then it stays there. So what we're going to do is highlight these guys and go keyframe assistant easy in. So as it moves in, it smooths its way in. Then we're going to smoothly bring it out at this point. So we move it out. I'm just trying to think if we should get it to about there. So let's just see what happens there. Okay. So the other thing we'll do is we're going to move to this point and we're going to make it smaller. So we're going to make it 100% or 102%. So let's just see what happens as we move forward. So it's basically looking like it's coming forward and getting larger. So that's what we should be seeing. Let's have a look. Yeah. So the other option we've got now is it's definitely getting bigger, which is better. So it looks like it's coming forward, and then I think it should keep scaling as it goes off. So what we can do is make it so that it scales about here, and it's scaling much larger. So keyframe assistant, we're going to easy in that, and let's just watch that. He's scaling bigger and bigger, and the positioning, so let's start to jump to that position, highlight it, and the position's going to be a little bit further down. So he's off. So let's just have a look at that, see if that renders for us. So that's what that's doing. And you could have done that again. You could have another one moving out. You could have another one drifting around. But for now, let's save that. And you can sort of see that that's going to look kind of cool if we actually just tilde that and zoom in a little bit. Okay, so jump out of there. Now, one of the animations okay, see how it suddenly held and then dropped? Now that's position. So what we can do is we can see that the easy keyframe assistant of easy ease tends to ease it in and out. Let's have a look. Okay, pretty subtle. So we save that. Now if we go back into Premiere, we should notice that that's changed. Now you can obviously see the exposure on this clip's got to be changed at some stage. Let's just see what's going on here. Okay, so we've got a problem there. Let's have a look. For some reason. Just double checking to see what's going on. Just got to play that and see what's happening. We're just double checking to see if there's any little glimpse of any kind. Now, after we've done this, after we've got the little animation, the next step I'll do is just quickly color correct this properly, because there is a problem with color correction on this, and there's a reason for it. It's actually the color correction that I've done. We're just double checking to see if there's any issues through this. And there shouldn't be. Just slowly but surely getting there, aren't we? Okay. Right. So we'll save that. That's all saved. That's kind. Okay. So next thing we're going to do is, because it's pre-composed, we're going to get rid of the little crab guy for now, and we're going to look at this clip and where is the color correction happening. It's actually happening on this composition stage. Actually, there's another stage as well. Yeah, it's the primate keyer. So go to the effects control, and I think where we've got a bit of a problem is where we did a color matcher. Yeah, that's why. So the issue is it's not the color matcher. Okay, I'm double checking to see if there's anything else. No light wrap. So I'm double checking to see where our problem is. In fact, the primate key is not even on. So just realize it's not even on. So it's not that. Nope. It's not that. It's not that. Okay, so it's none of this. So in actual fact, it's not this layer. Go back to the project section. So it's not this. Sometimes I like to see if there's an effect of some kind. Nope, I don't believe there is. So, could it be the remove green fringe? Let's just go with Colorista. I'm going to safely assume that we've got an issue in Colorista for this one little layer, and we're going to look at the effects of denoiser and Colorista. So let's highlight. Let's not worry about denoiser, but double check what's going on. Somewhere we've got a very aggressive color change. Temperature, is it too warm or not warm enough? I think that's where the issue lies. It's not warm enough. Another technique I can use is to do this. You create a mask. So we highlight the Colorista phase. Don't quote me on it, but let's just see if we get this to work. We're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now the mask effect did not do what I wanted, so let's just see if I can't move it to there. Nope. So let's just Control Z everything because I can't be bothered trying to work out how to undo that. Doesn't look like it's creating the mask that I want. Okay, so let's undo. It's the problem with doing this stuff live. We need to mask just this, and it's not doing it. The joys of After Effects, guys. What I'm trying to do is create one little mask, and it seems to be jumping up into there. This is not a problem if the mask would actually work. Which it's not. Okay, now it's... Okay, that's why, the denoiser. Gotta love it. All I wanted to do was to see the scopes of just that. Now, it's not going to be easy to spot, but essentially what we're trying to do Control Z that, of course. Go back to the selection tool. And that's what I wanted. So we're trying to open up the mask on the face so that we can see the skin tone. And you'll notice if we move the mask, this is absolutely hysterical, isn't it? Okay, so we just want to see the color in the face, and yeah, that's not really helping us at all. So the lumetri scopes are showing that it's very red. Now, if I change to this vector scope and knock out the waveform, what we're trying to do is get the skin tone, which is the whole point of what I just did then. And it's more than likely here, we're trying to see if we can get those skin tones where they need to be. So if we've got a problem with the skin, it's going to be these two areas here. So you can see if we move it around. So we're trying to get her skin to sit a little bit more on the skin line. Now you've got to be careful making these adjustments, because what happens when you see them in isolation is you just get a weird adjustment. Now we clearly don't want more of that, but we certainly want to see more of this. So what we're going to do is get rid of the mask, turn the denoiser back on, and move this mask, which is what we're trying to do now. So we're going to try to grab the mask, and hopefully it behaves. Of course, it's not going to. Absolutely not. So got to zoom out a little bit, make sure we're not stuffing around here. I love masks and how counterintuitive they are. So basically, I'm just trying to select the mask. And of course, I've got to do this ridiculous movement. So once again, like I said, masks, wow, you know, in After Effects, you're just trying to move them and do what you need, which is what I want to do, is just what I just did then. Now I've got to zoom back in, hand tool, back to the selection tool, and just select this stupid, idiotic mask. So okay. What we want to do is predominantly select just the skin area again. In fact, I almost feel like deleting this mask. It's absolutely useless. It's not doing anything of what I want. And of course, it's green, so that needs to change. Okay. I would have been better off just drawing another mask, but anyway, you get what I'm trying to do here. I just want to see the skin tone. We're going to get rid of the denoiser layer. And we're making sure that her skin tone is also pretty much sitting in that line there. So essentially, skin shouldn't be sitting in the reds, which hers is. It also shouldn't be sitting anywhere near here. It needs to be sitting in along there. And it seems to be slightly, well, this is your orange, obviously. We want this to be sitting just off orange. So to do that, we would actually come in here and we would mess around with these levels until we swing the skin into where it needs to be. And then, once again, because we've only got skin selected, if we turn denoiser back on, and of course, we can get rid of this mask and delete it, which we can do easy enough because we can just draw it again. You'll see that when we go back into Premiere, I like to jump off and jump back on. We should note, once it's re-rendered, that they're sort of a better skin tone. Now, the other issue we've got is, see how bright yellow her shirt is here? So if we actually jump in a little bit, zoom in, and we look at the shirts, there's a lot of saturation, but all of a sudden we jump to here, and we see a massive change in the shirt. Once again, it's probably caused not in here, believe it or not, and I suspect it's not, but it's caused elsewhere. So unfortunately, somewhere along the pipeline, we have an issue of the shirt changing color. Having said that, it may in fact be here, so let's just double check. The saturation's pretty high actually. I don't think it's this. So what we're going to do, we'll get rid of that. Go back into the project. We're going to have a look at what it wouldn't be. And the green screen Kia is, I think, what's causing it. So this is one of the reasons why we shifted techniques. Because if you look at her shirt here in this scene, right, it's a nice bright yellow. But by the time we get to the green screen Kia, we've got this massive shift, and it's caused by the keying technique, which was, quite frankly, inferior. So unfortunately, yeah, definitely it seems to have happened on the matte technique. Because if we get rid of the effect of set matte, no, so it's not that. So it's not this layer that's causing the color change or the color shift. So it's not that. I reckon it's key light. Yeah, it is. So key light is the offender. Key light is what's causing the color change, and it's a really bad one as well. So unfortunately, our key light method is atrocious. It absolutely destroys the genuine color that should be there. So you can see that by adding key light, we see this massive group of yellow color disappear. So if we actually look at what goes on when you turn on key light, it completely shifts the yellow spectrum. So this is where, when you're keying, you've got to be careful that you don't use an inferior method. And in this case, key light is terrible. So we've definitely got a problem there, which is a real shame, because now that we've done this, the keying, we've found the culprit. So that's where it is. It's right there. It's just all this yellow information, which is here, suddenly vanishes. So what do? There's a new technique that I use for green screen, which I'll probably cover off again and again. So don't be surprised if I do another video. But sadly, I'm wondering what happens when I go back. Let's just have a look. Well, how funny is that? It looked like I just did key light for no reason. So now you can see that the color change isn't as bad. The only problem we got with this clip is exposure, which we'll probably change in a sec. File save. Now that's clip number, this clip here is the 7th clip. So to fix that, we'll go back into After Effects. So it looks like we've fixed it. It was Keylight, and I really am not a fan of Keylight, to be honest. I tend to use, look, you can use Keylight. It's not the worst, but you just got to be careful with it. Let's go back in and have a look at the 7th clip. We're going to fix the, this one's a little bit simpler, but we've got a definite exposure issue. So this is where we're going to fix it. I believe it's here. Definitely a problem with exposure. So we'll go to the effects controls, highlight the clip. And all we've got to do now is quite literally go into exposure. And the reason we had an exposure issue is because we shot in someone's living room, which isn't ideal because of the ever-changing conditions in terms of sunlight through the window. So let's have a look. Exposure, we're just going to knock it up very subtle. It doesn't need a lot. Okay, 51.47. Now, a better way to check exposure levels and to make sure you're not going too crazy is to go into the parade, get rid of the vector scope, and you can see what's happening when you move your exposure levels around. Okay, we're certainly lifting the shadows here. Now, this isn't exactly the most scientific method ever being used here. This is certainly not, you know, your ideal scenario of changing exposure level. But once again, you know, because of the changing, well, what we're better off doing is going Shift, and we'll just go 1 frame back. And of course, there's nothing there. Let's have a look. Let's go to 75%. Yeah, it's a lot more balanced. But what we had here, this was shot, I think, later in the day, and that's why we had the problem. So that's our issue there. Now, a couple of things just to mention real quick. When you're shooting green screen, you're better off shooting in the highest possible quality. I use an Atomos video assist, and you can shoot in 220 DNX, which essentially is the highest quality and the least compression. That's generally much better. So the less compression you have, the better, because that just means you don't get this sort of artifacting, which you can see that we have in here. You can sort of see the image is a little bit, how should we say, you know, a little bit, you know, not ideal, put it that way, right? We've got a lot of this pixelation happening. So let's go back to fit, but at least we've got the exposure levels between these two clips a lot more evened out. So we'll save that. And let's go to where we were. So we were essentially here, and we don't have the sudden drop in the yellow shirt, which we're looking for. We're looking for that not dropping off as bad as it was, okay? Not as bad. The yellows and the bright colors should still be there. So we've done that, which is good. Now we'll save this again, Excuse me if I do sneeze. I do unfortunately have a cold. Or sort of a cold. Okay, let's go back to what we were doing before, which is the animation. What we've got to do now is listen to the song and work out the point that we're at. So that's got the crab creatures. Now I believe this is the stingray. So what I've got to do is just quickly listen to that. Yep. So that's the stingray. So what we do is we go into Illustrator. This is our little stingray creature. What we're going to do is isolate it. Easiest way to do that is create a new artboard. So I've just selected the artboard and we're just going to create a new artboard, right? Gotta love these artwork pieces that are all over the joint. Now we're going to go back to the selection tool and spacebar gives me the temporary. So we're going to select that. Now I could have, whatever, Alt and all the rest of it. But what we're going to do is make that larger, hold Shift to keep the proportions, and bring that out a bit. Okay, the other thing we can do is change the artboard size, so it doesn't need to be as big as all that. We've got to love that. Creates a new artboard rather than select what I'm trying to select. Evil. Can we say that Adobe are sometimes evil? The way they design their software? Just to be counterintuitive and all that other rubbish. So, File, Save. We've got a stingray creature this time. What we're going to do now is use that animation technique that I talked about. And let's do it. Let's grab that. So we're going to export. Export for screens. And we actually don't want that. We don't need this main one, but we do want Artboard 2. We're going to save it to her file. And most important thing here is the settings. It's going to be transparent. And we should see, let me just double check something here, because unfortunately I think the background, we need to see what the transparency is. There was a way to see transparency. You've got to love this, seriously. View, I believe it's here, transparency. Yep, so it's transparency. So view, transparency grid. Of course, that makes perfect sense to the average artist. Please show me transparency grid. And then just to find it again, I just lost it again. Surely it would be show grid. Hide transparency grid. And then we'll go into view and get rid of grid. We don't want to hide the grid. Okay, so put simply, file, export, export for screens. We don't care about that main artboard. We're just going to grab this. We know that it's going to give us the thing, and we're going to move it into illustrations. Select folder. So we're going to put it into the illustrations section, export it. Please rename it. Well, why would we do that when we can call it Stingray? How about that? Dash. And we should see it there. Okay. Wonderful. If we go into After Effects now, we're actually going to close off that little section, go back into the project. And what we're going to do now is go to Sea Creatures, create a new bin, and we're going to call it Stingray. Okay, and in here, we're actually going to double click, bring in the little Stingray guy, import, and boom, we're going to bring it down to sea creatures to start because it's just in the wrong spot, and then throw it in the Stingray section. So I like to keep all the assets together rather than all the illustrations together. I bring the asset into the Stingray area. Now what we're going to do, so that we're not confused by what we're seeing here, we're just going to get rid of all this stuff because we don't need it. And we're going to show you, I'm going to stop the stream for now. And in the next part, part 2, you're going to see the actual animation, which I think is important to break it up. So we'll stop the stream. This is more of a setup and a bit of an overview. The next part, we're actually going to see how to actually do the actual animation.